Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Uh, Today is our August installment of our Healthy Relationships for Youth campaign here at the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Today I have joining this conversation of how traffickers recruit youth. I have Kessa Lee and Ashlee Sampson of Eddy House in Reno, Nevada. And then I have Lindsay Bridges of Awaken, also in Reno, Nevada. So that was very, very brief. If you could tell us more about your organization, the work you do there, that would be great. Let's start with Ashlee and go around.
Hi, I'm Ashlee. I'm the clinical director here. So I oversee our case managers, our youth advocates, they're now community, what are we now? The CSSs, services specialists, our aftercare and therapy part of Eddy House. I'm Kessa. I'm the Community Engagement Director here at Eddy House. Eddy House is a youth shelter for 18 to 24-year-olds, as well as resource center. We have outreach into high schools, as well as our residential programs and comprehensive day programming, and so much more. So I get to see our outreach program and other community engagement efforts.
Perfect.
I'm Lindsay Bridges, and I'm our prevention coordinator and youth advocate over at Awaken. And at Awaken, we've been around for 15 years. We work with anyone coming out of commercial sexual exploitation. And so we have done a lot to develop our prevention side of it, speaking in schools, youth organizations, while also doing some high risk work with kids from our community. So we're excited to be here.
Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you for the important work you do. When we speak about sex trafficking, especially among our youth, a lot of times conversations can be, what movies put out there, right? That you have to be physically restrained, or you're taken against your will or kidnapped. And I want to speak to probably some things that people don't recognize in relationships that involve control. So let's just get right into it. The first question I have, and anyone can go for it. Why do you think people have a hard time recognizing trafficking when it doesn't look violent?
Yeah, I think for us, so if you're over the age of 18, you have to be able to prove force, fraud, or coercion. Force being the physical side of it, fraud being the fake promises. But really what we see more often is the coercion side of it. So the manipulation. So that's if you're over 18. If you're under 18, really it's sex in exchange of something of value. But we know that it really has to do with the manipulation, being seen, being heard, being loved, being belonging, and having community. And so it's really the internal stuff that we see the change, not the physical side of it. And so emotions are so easy to manipulate, love being the biggest emotion to manipulate. And so that's why it's really impacting our youth community, is because they're in relationships, they're in friendships, they think they're being loved. And we were talking about it earlier. If you haven't received healthy love, you are willing to accept unhealthy love because you don't know the difference.
Yeah. Another thing we were just talking about is what it looks like, not just sex trafficking, but just human trafficking of like work, asking them to do work outside of their normal work boundaries.
Yeah.
And for us, what we see is that folks who have experienced homelessness are so scared to lose their job, to lose that stability that they finally held onto, that they'll do anything to hold on to it. Mm-hmm. And that's being exploited by their bosses. And so it doesn't look violent. It's just like, oh, I think I need you to come clean my house. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, okay, whatever you need. I just got to keep my job. Right. And so it's really making sure that people are feeling safe is the big thing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Because a lot of times when it starts in relationships and things like that, it could be something as simple as a DM. It could be something as simple as an offer for a ride home, or like you said, an opportunity for employment. So that is really important for people to understand, like it shows up in so many different ways. Can someone be in a situation that looks voluntary from the outside, but still involve exploitation? And what kind of cues or things should people be aware of, so that way, you know, maybe it's easier to identify?
I think the coercion and manipulation is it. A lot of this actually looks voluntary from the get go for pretty much everybody across the board. It's not somebody going and like kidnapping them and taking them in chains.
Right.
It really starts voluntary, and we have had clients here that, you know, they slowly, all of a sudden, we see certain things like they're getting new shoes or they have new clothes, or and it's expensive things. It's not your, you know, run of the mill outfits that they're wearing anymore. They are coming in and taking showers during the day, which normally, you know, can happen, especially in shelter setting. But when it's more frequent, we're seeing things like that. It can be so voluntary to the point where the manipulation hits, where our clients will be like, this is our normal job.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing every single day. And it gets stuck in their brain that this is voluntary because of love bombing, because of the money, because they are able to actually pay for things for themselves. And a lot of those conversations can be really difficult because they get really stuck in that thought process and they don't want to leave that safety net of that money and that financial stability that they finally have.
Yeah, I think the other piece of this is that it doesn't happen overnight, right? So even from the get-go, we see a grooming process with our traffickers. Like, they don't just get in a relationship and the next night you're being sold in our local community. You know, we know traffickers that say that they're in the long game for up to 2 years before they're going to ask for that to happen. And they need that ask to be a yes. It can't be a no and it can't be a maybe. And so they will provide everything around them to make that possible. But we've also seen it happen in as soon as 2 weeks, depending on the instability and the background and the vulnerabilities of some of the clients that we've served. And so I think that we have to remember that there's a grooming process of, I might press a boundary and see what your reaction is. I might throw a red flag into our relationship, but see, are you willing to accept it, or are you going to shut down relationship with me? And so this isn't a one and done moment. It's a constant pressing to get them to that point that when the trafficker feels like, oh, the answer is going to be yes, that I can, then I'm going to put them in a situation where it has to happen.
Yep.
So if everyone, not sure if everyone knows what you mean by grooming. Could you explain like what that would look like for people who are not familiar with that term?
Yeah, and so we talk about grooming a lot when it comes to sexual abuse, and we see that often when you have a predator or maybe a young child. And so we've used that term often in that way. But I think that we forget that traffickers, they're smart. You know, they know what they're doing. And so innately we desire to be seen and to be heard and to be accepted and to be loved. And so when you aren't receiving any of those things, you are willing to look for them in places that might not be the healthiest. And so we have had some traffickers that realize that some of our vulnerabilities of our clients might be financially, and so they will provide things. When we first got in this fight, we really saw it as survival sex. So maybe our unhoused population doesn't have a place to stay or food to eat. They will provide those things so that they become the hero. They become they're the chameleon. They'll provide whatever they need to be the best, the superior. And so if that means protection, if that means a place to stay, food to eat, clothes to wear, but we see that all the way through in two parent homes with multi-million dollars, because if a kid believes that they're not being seen or that they're not being heard or that they're not being accepted, they are seeking that in other ways, and traffickers are stepping in, and so they manipulate that relationship to get what they want.
So it sounds like traffickers are meeting an unmet need and using that to gain your trust. And so the next thought is, a lot of times when we speak about things like this, the focus is only on strangers, right? Can we speak to that, and how a lot of times, like you said, you've been talking to this person for 2 years, you trust them. They started out as a stranger, but here we are in this space. Can we talk about that kind of messaging?
Yeah, what do you guys see here at the house?
So trafficking actually really starts with the family system. So we see more trafficking hitting within their mother. 60% of people being trafficked are actually within the family system, and most likely their mother and some female figure. But we also see trafficking when it comes to, you know, that love relationship. That could be like, oh, my friend, and they've built that trust. And once that trust has been built, it could be, it's normally not some random person off the street that's doing the trafficking. They
Right.
know this person, they've built that tolerance to that relationship. And then they get to a point where it's, I want to keep that relationship. I want to be safe.
Yeah.
I know they'll protect me.
Yeah.
Why am I going to walk away from this?
Yeah.
And again, it's stability. It's, I have somebody in my corner. They're going to protect me. And it's this cat and mouse game that they're constantly playing. And they will give little crumb droppings just here and there to keep that person coming in. It's like Hansel and Gretel.
Mhm. Yeah. I think we see it oftentimes or in our mind, because media has portrayed it of the white man that pulls up and kidnaps you, or even catfishing. We've talked a ton about catfishing, but it's really that relationship that has to be built. And so that relationship can be in any capacity. So we've seen it from familial, where it's maybe a little bit generational of this is what we've always done and this is how we've always operated. It can be coaches. It can be, we see all kinds of points of access where someone might usurp their authority or use their authority in a way that puts a kid at harm's way. But also, in all of the years that we've been doing this, that's what it originally looked like and started with. But now we're really seeing this relationship. We call it the Romeo pimp of really just having the relationship of boyfriend and girlfriend. And we assume that a trafficker is going to be this gross, crusty, gross person that kidnaps you and throws you in the back of your white van and then hides you in chains and an abandoned building. And that's not it. We're seeing traffickers that are 18 years old that are in relationships with people and exploiting and manipulating that love.
I used to be a teacher at a middle school, and we would see our young boys come in and they were recruited by gangs to recruit other young girls. So it's not even like a single point of contact. It can be through a friend, it's through someone else, through your mom, through your brother's mom, whatever that looks like.
That statistic about like mothers being, you know, the family member most likely to be exploiting their children. When you're a youth in these vulnerable situations, and like you said, some kids think, "Oh, I'm just working." How can you help them identify and recognize manipulation on the inside, right? Like if you feel like this is your normal, what can we provide them with so that they are like, well, wait a minute, at least to question what's happening?
Yeah. So this is where I go into the community, because if this is happening at home, you're talking like boys and girls clubs or community centers or sports teams, these kinds of things. If they start to actually see what healthy relationships are and they actually are able to build those relationships within different systems, they're going to start questioning things. If they're going over to their friend's house and they're like, oh, this is not normal. Yeah, my house is not normal. They're going to start questioning things. They're going to start bringing things up. That is where community partners are very, very important, period, across the board for any adult, youth, it doesn't matter. Because they are able to actually see, it's like a mirror. They're actually able to see what is going on within their family system.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Ashlee. So when you have these trusted adults, right, even if the initial meeting was someone with their first attempt at, you know, trying to exploit you, how does choice look for someone whose choices have been systemically narrowed? Like their options are becoming smaller the longer they stay with this person, so they ultimately feel like it's impossible for them to leave. What does choice look like for those people?
And this is where we really build an Eddy house. So I always say we need to give them a piece of hope. So what that looks like could be meeting a small goal. If they are able to build that hope within themselves, they are going to learn what manipulation looks like, that they can actually do things without having those people around them. That is where, like, one of our goals, especially in case management, where we are creating those goals with them, that they're obtainable, that they can learn to build that hope within themselves, because that's when you see our clients flourish. They are able to understand that they have this hope within themselves,
Yeah.
and they can change, and it doesn't have to be what they grew up in. And that is why we love what we do, because we get to see that actually happen. The light bulb goes off for them, and all of a sudden they're doing so much to change their lives.
Yeah. I think the other side of that is, that's post, right? But if you start early in giving autonomy and consent and choice to a kid who's growing up, so they might have two things and both are healthy, and then they get to choose. Then they have confidence in themselves, like, I can make the right choice. And so we give them choice early on so that they know what it feels like when lack of choice is taken away.
Okay.
Or when someone is constantly telling them what to do, which becomes a red flag of, oh, this person controls me, but that's not how I was raised. And so it pushes back on some of the things that were started early on. And so choice isn't just an option when you become 16 or 17 or even an adult. Choice has to be built in so that they can see what choice looks like. Otherwise, it becomes a lack of a choice, and they only get to choose, because choice it's a loaded word. They get to choose the one option that they have left. So you're taking away actual autonomy and choice from them.
And I think a lot of the choice piece too has to do with a lot of what Ashlee was talking about, the way you see yourself. Like, if someone has told you over and over, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, this is a choice over here. Then if you believe those things about yourself, like, well, I can't make money without this, I don't have anyone who loves me except for you. If you believe those lies, if you believe that, then you don't have another choice in your mind, which is where building in that hope comes in so integral.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Kessa. It sounds like since recruitment and trafficking involves connection, that what you're saying in prevention, it also involves connection. How can we avoid turning normal adolescent behavior into a trafficking investigation?
Yeah. I think that's the hard part, is that traffickers are smart about this, and they've realized that relationship and connection is at the forefront. It's integral to be able to keep that connection with those that they're exploiting. And so I really see that has to start from an early age of healthy community. Like, we know for a kid to survive and thrive, they need 5 healthy people in their village. And so providing people outside of maybe the parental units or the familial unit of healthy coaches, healthy organizations, churches, aunts, uncles, other people that have eyes and ears that can see them and love them and help instill some of that confidence in them. Because then they realize what healthy connection looks like. I would say that even at Awaken, if we have a girl or a client who maybe still has one foot in the life and one foot outside of the life, they usually choose us to participate with, to go to fun events, because they've realized that it's healthy community. And so it's feeding something inside of them that says, oh, I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm valued. And so teaching them almost the red flag, green flag situation from an early age of, like, no, that didn't feel good when that person controlled me. And so I don't want to spend time with them, or they isolate me and pull me away from my other friends or my family, and that doesn't feel good. And so really teaching them to know themselves.
That is great. Thank you so much for that, Lindsay. I want to open up the floor to our viewers. If there are any questions, please drop them in the comments, and we'll address those during the live. Thank you again for that. With all of the great things that you've offered to help connect with youth and to identify, what grooming may look like, what is something that parents and trusted adults often do with good intentions that make disclosure harder?
A lot of times it can become punitive. I think it's very important to be able to open a conversation and build that rapport. And as parents, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. I'm going based off of how I was raised. Parents are very protective. They want to make sure their child is okay. That has been normal. But there comes a point in time where that communication becomes more authoritarian, where they are shutting down conversations that could be opening doors for that person to actually open up more. So it's building that relationship and understanding that, I mean, parents don't have a handbook, so they are learning as they're going as well. So it is very much them going back and forth and seeing what works, because every single child and youth and human are different.
Absolutely.
It's also picking up on the small little things that they do that will change. So it could be their facial expression, which, you know, people make fun of me because yes, I'm a therapist. And yes, I see small little cues that people do all the time that I know changes in their behavior, but it could be them sleeping more. It could be their diet. It could be they're isolating more in the room. It's just those small little things that you pick up and it's like, hey, yeah, what's going on? Are you doing okay? It's a question. It's not, you know, interrogating them for everything that they're doing wrong, because they already feel like they are, especially your middle schoolers.
Yes.
They already feel like they can't do anything right. The hormones are going through them. They think the worst about themselves. And if we're interrogating them, how are we actually going to create that relationship with them to understand what healthy communication looks like?
Yeah. And I think too, it's important. A lot of parents want to protect their kids so much that they end up accidentally cutting them off from everyone else. And so figuring out how to create trusted relationships outside of yourself, like with other adults that you trust, that you know are trustworthy. How can you help your child build relationships that are not just you? Like I have a young daughter and I'm like, well, I know there's going to come a day when you don't want to talk to me about this.
Right.
So who are you going to talk to? And so just trying to make sure that she has those trusted adults in her life that aren't me, that she can get that good advice from.
Yeah. I think the hard part is like, you can't be afraid of the awkward. You know, like I would recommend always to start early. And so that's always been on the table of like when we sit down for dinner, we have in-depth conversation, or I'm going to ask some hard questions. And so not being afraid of the silence and just letting them kind of figure out how they're going to answer something. But it's really the open-ended questions. It's and starting a conversation. Hey, this is going to feel weird and we're going to have a hard conversation about this, but we can work through it together. And then listening, you know, like I think oftentimes parents go, well, I know it all. And maybe you know a portion of it, but you're not in the school 6 to 8 hours a day. You're not in their body hearing what's going on between their friends. And so sitting and listening, and then careful how we react and respond.
Yes.
Right. And so I thought about even the facial expression, because sometimes people want to see the reaction. And so then, or someone tells you something hard and your immediate reaction is, oh, how dare you? That just shuts down all communication for the future.
Okay.
And so really being aware of yourself and what the response is going to be.
And humble enough if what you're saying is about you.
Yeah.
Like if someone says, Mom, you're not listening to me, you can't be like, what do you mean? I always listen.
Okay, right.
You get shut down.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take that feedback, even if it's about you.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, you know, partially true. They've got a lot of feelings. And if they have a feeling about it, they need to be able to express that safely to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that that was really good, Lindsay. Don't be afraid of the silence, right? Have the awkward conversations. We do have a question in the comments. Where does the system fail these kids before a trafficker ever enters the picture? Anybody?
I'll just speak from my like clinical experience and working in this field for a while. I will say the pandemic has created a lot of isolation. So the loneliness piece is where we fail. Not the system, but we fail in general of what is going on. We are constantly creating these systems where not clients, but children, youth, anybody is going up to their room and they are being isolated from the family system. They're not sitting down for a dinner or something like that. They don't have outside friends. They don't have that communication piece with other people. And I've seen this especially with, pandemic kiddos that are now in their 20s, that they don't know how to interact. They don't know how to bond with people, and they don't know how to have a conversation. So that's where we fail, is we have created this isolation system for them.
Yeah.
And even ourselves as adults, like we have to catch that for ourselves, because there are times where we could be scrolling on our phones hours. Doom scrolling is real. So it is understanding that if we're showing that behavior to them, they're going to do the same thing.
Okay.
And that's why I always say, like, sports, boys and girls clubs, things that get you out in the community where you're actually building that relationship. That is where we will heal pieces of this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the system, and I just say this as a social worker, the system will be broken because humans are broken. And we're never going to have a perfect system. But it's, what do we have in place? What do we have in our community that can aid and help to make it better?
Yeah. I think part of it is like, yes, I think that is so true. We are probably the most connected by phone, by internet, all of these things, and yet we're the most isolated generation we're seeing right now. But I think when you're talking about systemic, like, we know, here are some of the crazy facts, is that when kids are in the system, they become that much more vulnerable to a trafficker, because we know that they don't have stability, they don't have family, they don't have all these things. Some of the statistics are an unhoused person within the first 48 hours will be elicited for exploitation. And so we see that as a huge vulnerability, obviously, being unhoused. Our foster care system, we know that because our kiddos growing up in the foster care system, that's a huge vulnerability for them, because lack of connection, lack of community, lack of familial units around them. And so some of those things mean that the community is going to have to step in to eliminate some of those vulnerabilities. But the vulnerabilities aren't just the kids in the system. There are kids, period. They're kids going from our most lowest socioeconomic middle school all the way to our highest socioeconomic high school, and everything in between. There's no bias when it comes to trafficking anymore. And that's the scariest part for me, is that when we first started doing this, it was maybe the couch hopper or the foster care kid, but it's not anymore. I have worked with people who are coming out of 2-parent homes that live in mini mansions that will make 6 figures a year. And yet we know that it's the intrinsic value of being seen and being heard and being loved. And so it's up to us to provide those safety resources for every kid.
And I think too, really, it's about education for the kids of what they're seeing online. We were talking before about like the dangers of different games like Roblox and the different things that are going on online, as well as not understanding what trafficking is, to not understanding those things. Like our clients, only 1 out of 5 of our clients report that they have been trafficked in some way.
Yeah.
But then when you ask them further questions, like they say, oh yeah, well, I exchanged sex for money, but that was just that. And so people don't understand what the definition of trafficking is, and they don't understand what's happening. So I think there's definitely a piece of education that needs to happen, not just around trafficking and when it actually happens, but about the beginning pieces, about how to keep yourself safe online, because we are all online right now because we're so isolated from other humans due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so being able to have that education is a huge piece too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. As we speak about like times changing, COVID did bring isolation to the forefront of many of our lives, and a lot of us are still there in that space. And with that, we do spend a lot of time on the phone, on games, computers. How does digital safety fit into the prevention piece of trafficking?
That is a loaded question. Because it is important. It's so important, and it's so scary, because you have kids on Instagram, Snapchat. There's all these things. I'm way too old. They call me boomer now. I don't know all these things. But that is the scariest piece, is that a lot of these conversations or a lot of these interactions are all online.
Right.
Even there'll be people watching YouTube, watching people play video games, which I'm just like, this baffles me. Like, I thought we play video games together. Yes, boomer. But the whole point of this is that if we're constantly having a conversation about what is going on online and what you're doing, it does create a safety, and that's the safety net you want to have when you're interrogating them, or if they do something wrong online, because sometimes you're going to have people post some provocative pictures or do a TikTok that's not okay, those kinds of things. They're trying to figure out what is okay and what's not. It is honestly that conversation with them to be able to understand what they're actually doing online. And even go into adulthood, even our clients, where if something's happening online, I'm like, it's just honest. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
What is happening? It's not this, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would do that. That's so gross. All these. And that's where, especially as females, that word gross, disgusting, the shame, the embarrassment, the guilt, that is what traps a lot of people, and including males as well.
Yeah.
That is the piece that we have to be really careful with when it comes to online communication.
Yeah, I think it starts so young. And so I would just recommend for parents, don't wait until they're in middle school. We know that right now the average age for someone to view pornography online is between 8 and 9 years old for the first time. And so, but if you're waiting until 12, like, they have seen some things that you're going to need to have some conversations about. And so really just starting with open communication. Who are you playing with? The privacy of who you're playing with and who you're having a conversation. Headphones, so that you're not having secret conversations, that all of the voices come through the computer and the TVs. I think even, we're seeing a new separation of the world of trafficking, and it's called sextortion. I can't say it now. Sextortion. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But we're seeing this specifically with video games. Maybe I'll send you a photo and you send me a photo, and then now I'm going to extort money out of you. Otherwise, I'm going to shame you. And the idea of being shamed, we talked about shame is a huge motivator. And so if you have, it keeps you quiet. And so why would I tell my mom that I did something wrong when I know that I'm going to get my video games taken away, I'm going to get yelled at, I'm going to be punished, all of those things, rather than my mom is safe and I can have the hard conversation with her. And so now I'm in this world of this cat and mouse game of trying to keep up. And then we see that specifically with our male population, because they don't know how to process it or have the hard conversation, and they're taking drastic measures to get out of it. And so just the healthy communication of who are you playing with, what are you playing, even access, like, just because they have a phone, I'm sure you're paying the bill. And so you have access to their social media, reading, who are their friends, who are their friends' parents. And it's not out of an interrogation and you better tell me everything. This is just, it comes up in conversation because it's healthy and it's safe. And we can talk about the hard things and the good things at the same time.
And I think the thing that a lot of, like, especially moms don't think about is play the game with your kid. Like, figure out how to learn how to play the game.
Yeah.
My son is still really young, but he always wants to play Super Smash Bros. And I'm not great at Super Smash Bros. But I will play with him so that when he gets older and he wants to play all these games, he knows that he can come to mom and mom will be fun. And I won't be like, oh, don't talk to me about another game.
Yeah.
Right.
Open that communication, even if you don't care.
Yeah.
Pretend you care because you care about him.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. That communication is key to prevention. When I want to have, as we begin to wind down on this conversation, a lot, I know when I was younger, it was like, say no to strangers, stranger danger, right?
Yes.
And instead of teaching that, like, if we're going to leave any advocates, educators, all of our trusted adults with something, instead of teaching, don't talk to strangers, like, what are we teaching? Like, I would say one of the things is to pay attention to how people respond to your no. And I would like for you all to, offer something, a tip that, is an alternative to don't talk to strangers. Are you all?
So it is very important to understand that you need to have that open line of communication. Stranger danger, yes, of course. Yeah, don't go around talking to random people. But still a good tip. Still a good tip. I think it's very important to still emphasize that. But it's also the communication of your boundaries. So people are watching you on how you do your boundaries with people. So if you're constantly watching somebody in your family system or your friends group or anything like that, where they're being shamed, guilted, and they continue to stay in that relationship and they don't do anything about it, that's normal.
Yeah.
Like what you said. If I say no, what is their reaction? Because
Right.
that will tell me everything I need to know. So if you are saying no to somebody and their reaction is, no, you need to do this for me. Like, why don't you love me? These kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
Giving those examples to people, but it's also that rapport building that you have with your own people, your own friendship group, that you can have these honest conversations. It is, if you take one tip out of this entire thing, is that connection and that conversation, those communications need to be at the forefront of your mind. If you have a question in your head and you think that something is happening, that is where you can be like, hey, what's going on? Because I'm noticing these little things that are different about you. What's happening? Those really help, especially in if you were having questions as a parent and you're bringing the child in for therapy or anything like that. That helps the therapist understand, hey, these are the kinds of questions I've already been asking. They are really hesitant on sharing information, and that's where, trusted community providers can help you build more of those harder conversations together.
Yeah. I think the other part is really teaching your kids to trust their gut, to trust those that intuition that they're built with. And so a lot of my participants or clients would say, hey, I knew something was wrong, but I just didn't know who to talk to or didn't know what to do about it. And so they had something inside that said, this doesn't feel right. And yet somehow or another, they usurped it. And so really teaching that, and then that's where no comes in, the boundary system. I ask all the time, would you let your best friend do what you're doing? And usually you want to stick up for someone else, like, no, I've never let him talk to my best friend in a way that, and so then it's like, but why is it okay for you? And so really teaching them that it's okay to, it's not selfish to take care of yourself.
Yes.
It's not selfish because we've created this system where you have to overserve, you have to overshare, you have to over all of these things. But it's okay to say no and let that be the sentence. It's okay to have a boundary. It's okay to say, hey, I need to think about that, or I need to talk to my mom about that, and not feel obligated to just answer and to do right off the bat.
I think too, it's about like not just the saying no, but that's huge, but also having the confidence that you're worth saying no, that you have to say no, and you have the hope and you have that work. And then also your body is your body. I think I always go back to littles because I have littles. And so I think I never force my kids to hug someone else, even if it's a family member or anything like that. You're allowed to say no because this is your body.
Right.
Your body, and you get to choose how that is. And nobody gets to touch you. Now, we were joking before about those songs that you sing to kids. Like, this is my no-no square.
Yeah, that's important though. It's funny that it's important.
Yeah, to talk about those pieces that are, this is yours and no one gets to see it, no one gets to touch it.
Right. Thank you all so much. Just hearing you reinforce that communication and boundaries and the belief that you have about yourself for the community to be responsible and making sure that our kids are equipped, our young people are equipped with those tools. I just want to share again that a lot of times human trafficking prevention is not about teaching our young people to be afraid of everyone, but to give them tools to, communicate how they're feeling with people that they trust. And as a community, our job is to make our young people make sure they feel noticed by people who want to protect them and not people who want to exploit them. If you want to share your organization's information so that way everybody has it, I did drop your @s in the comments for everyone to follow. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to do a send off, we are done.
Yeah, go for it, Kessa. Yes,
Thank you guys so much for letting us talk. Honestly, it's just been such an honor to be able to do this collaboration with you guys, and especially with Awaken as well. Just it's amazing to see a whole community come together to try to protect our young people, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, follow us on Eddy House Instagram. We're also on Facebook and other places too. Yeah.
I would say if you have questions, call us. We're happy to answer them. And like you said, we don't want it to be this scary topic, but we want people to be well informed. And so we're happy to come talk to groups and to parents. We have parent guides on our website. Go to awakenjustice.org. You can find out more about how to have those conversations about digital agencies and platforms, and then also follow us at Awaken Inc. On Instagram. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. Thank you all for tuning in. It will be up on our reel shortly. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.